It's 1936, just outside Baghdad. Railway workers are digging when their shovels strike something hollow. They clear away the dirt and lift out a small clay jar about the size of your fist, sealed shut and caked in 2,000 years of earth. It looks like an ordinary ancient pot, the kind that fills museum basements by the thousand. But when a curator finally opens it, he finds something strange inside. A copper tube, and suspended down the middle of that tube, an iron rod held in place by a plug of ancient tar. It's not a vase, it's not a jar for oil or grain. Its shape, its parts, the way it's built. It looks to more than one pair of eyes, almost exactly like something that would not be invented for another 1,700 years. It looks like a battery. Welcome to Erased Inventions, where we dig up the technologies that genuinely existed, genuinely worked, and then somehow vanished from history. And the rule never changes. We deal in the documented record. Real artifacts, real archaeology, real testing. We follow the evidence wherever it leads, even when it leads somewhere genuinely strange. If that's your idea of a good time, hit like. It honestly helps these stories reach more curious people. Right? Let's open the jar. First, let's lay out exactly what was found, because the facts matter more than the legend here. The object is small, a clay pot around 5 inches tall. Inside sits a cylinder made of rolled copper sheet. Inside that copper cylinder is a single iron rod, positioned right down the center so it doesn't touch the copper walls. And the whole thing is sealed at the top with bitumen, a natural tar, holding everything neatly in place. Now, if you've ever seen the inside of a simple battery, your ears might be pricking up. Because that is roughly the recipe. 2 different metals, a central rod, a sealed container. Add an acidic liquid, something like vinegar or wine, and in principle you get a chemical reaction between the 2 metals that produces a small electric current. The artifacts are usually dated to somewhere around 2,000 years ago in the region of ancient Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq. Which is the part that makes people sit up? Because the battery as we know it wasn't supposedly invented until the year 1800 by an Italian named Alessandro Volta. So if this little jar really was a battery, it would predate the official invention of the battery by around 17 centuries. And that is exactly the kind of thing that should not exist. Here's where the story really took off. In 1938, a German curator named Wilhelm Koenig, who worked at the museum in Baghdad, examined the object and proposed something bold. He suggested it wasn't a storage jar at all. It was a galvanic cell, a battery. Possibly used, he speculated, for electroplating, coating cheaper metal objects with a thin, shiny layer of gold or silver using electricity. And the idea was irresistible. An ancient battery. Electricity in the time of the Romans and Parthians? People imagined ancient temples lit by electric light, priests dazzling worshippers with hidden power. The story spread and the little jar earned its famous nickname, the Baghdad Battery. And here's the genuinely compelling part. People tested the idea. Replicas were built, filled with grape juice or vinegar and wired up. And they worked, sort of. The replicas produced a small voltage, not much. Around half a volt to nearly 2 volts in various experiments. Enough to register on a meter, enough to make you go, huh. So this isn't pure fantasy. A jar built like this with the right liquid inside genuinely can produce a trickle of electricity. That part is real and it's testable and it's been tested, which is exactly why this story has hooked people for nearly a century. Quick pause. If a possible 2,000-year-old battery is messing with your sense of history as much as it did mine, share this with someone who loves a good mystery. Sharing is genuinely the single biggest thing that helps a small channel grow. Right. But before we get carried away, we need to do the thing this channel always does. We need to follow the evidence. And the evidence has some very awkward questions. Because here's where we have to be honest. And being honest is the whole point of this channel. As exciting as the battery theory is, most archaeologists today are deeply skeptical of it. And their reasons are good ones. First problem, there are no wires. In all the finds, nobody has ever recovered conductors, connectors, or anything you'd actually need to draw electricity out of the jar and use it for something. A battery with no way to connect it to anything is a strange sort of battery. Second problem, there's no other evidence of electrical knowledge anywhere in the culture. No text describing electricity, no tools that need it, no other devices. If someone had genuinely cracked electricity 2,000 years ago, you'd expect it to show up somewhere else. And it simply doesn't. it would be one isolated spark in a complete vacuum. Third, and this is the big one, there's a far more ordinary explanation that fits the evidence better. Archaeologists have pointed out that these jars closely resemble storage vessels used to hold sacred scrolls or papyrus. The iron rod and copper would corrode over time, and the bitumen seal would protect the contents. In other words, it may simply be a fancy container. The corrosion that looks like the residue of acid might just be the corrosion of metal sitting in damp ground for 20 centuries. And there's one more catch. The dating itself is uncertain. The original context of the find was poorly recorded, and some researchers argue the jars may actually be far more recent than first claimed, possibly from a period when batteries weren't quite so impossible. So when you stack it all up, the careful answer is this. Yes, the jar can produce a tiny current if you fill it with acid and wire it up. But that does not mean that's what it was for. A thing being able to do something is not proof that anyone ever used it that way. So where does that leave us? Being straight with you, as always. The Baghdad Battery is real, like the object absolutely exists, and you can go and look at descriptions of it today. The fact that a replica can generate a small voltage is also real. Those two things are not in dispute. What is very much in dispute is the leap in between. The idea that ancient people knew about electricity, built batteries on purpose, and used them. On the current evidence, that leap is not supported. The most likely explanation is the boring one. It was probably a storage vessel, and its battery-like shape is a fascinating coincidence. And yet, I find I can't fully let it go. Because the honest position isn't, it was definitely a battery, and it isn't, case absolutely closed forever either. The honest position is, we don't entirely know. The records are messy, the dating is shaky, and the object really does have the bones of a battery, whether anyone intended it or not. And that uncertainty is the actual treasure here. We love to imagine the ancient world as primitive, people fumbling in the dark, waiting for us clever moderns to show up. The Baghdad Battery is a small, stubborn reminder that the people who came before us were endlessly inventive, and that we still don't have all their answers. Some of their objects are still sitting in display cases, quietly refusing to be fully explained. That's the whole reason this channel exists. Draw your own conclusions. Next week on Erased Inventions, a metal that ancient craftsmen worked in ways modern engineers still can't fully reproduce, with accidental nanotechnology hidden inside it. If you made it this far, you're exactly my kind of person. So 3 quick things, and each one genuinely helps this channel grow. Hit like. It pushes this video to more curious minds. Share it with a friend who loves an ancient mystery. And subscribe, because every week we dig up another piece of erased history. And here's the one I really want from you. Drop a comment and tell me, do you think the Baghdad Battery was a real battery, or just a very convincing jar? I will read every single one, and the best discussions happen down there with you. Until next time, stay curious. We follow the evidence.